Amid the storm of accusations sharp as knives, when the tongues of the world weave a net to ensnare the soul, there exists a quiet strength that stands firm, needing neither to shout nor to retort. That strength is silence, not the darkness of surrender, but the radiant light of faith. A sanctuary where God whispers words of comfort and guidance in trials that make the heart tremble. When society demands you scream to survive, silence becomes a shield, guarding your dignity against invisible arrows. Like Jesus standing silent before Pilate, like the Israelites walking quietly around Jericho, silence is not defeat, but a spiritual strategy, a resounding voice in the heart declaring God is at work, and He has never failed. Step into the journey of discovering this quiet power, where each moment you keep your lips sealed. Heaven opens a new door in days that pass like a bitter wind over barren fields. There are moments when life corners you in darkness, where sharp words from others surround you, where misunderstandings pile up like stones pressing on your chest. It's the moment an old colleague's accusation echoes in a meeting room, or a neighbor's malicious whisper slips through the wooden fence. It's when words on a phone screen, a comment, a message sting like needles, urging your heart to cry out in defense. But at that very edge, amid the storm of emotions and pressure, there lies a quiet strength, needing no shouts or raised banners of defiance. That is silence, not the shadow of submission, but the radiant light of faith, a flame burning softly in the hearth, warm enough to thaw a frozen winter. This silence is not easy. It demands a heart strong enough to restrain the fire of anger, wise enough to see that not every battle requires the sword of words. Think of Jesus, standing before Pilate in a cold room, where accusations rained down like hail. He did not speak, did not argue, did not plead for understanding from those who chose the blade of deceit. His silence was not failure but a resounding proclamation that truth needs no shouts to stand firm. Proverbs 17:28 reminds us, "Even a fool is considered wise if he keeps silent, and discerning if he holds his tongue." Yet, in moments when life tests you, when pride is trampled, when your name is dragged through the mud of gossip, how can you choose silence over retaliation? The answer lies in a truth deeper than words can touch. Silence is not surrender, but surrender to God. It is the moment you let go of the rope of argument, allowing God's unseen hand to take hold. It's when you stand on your porch, watching rain patter on the tin roof, realizing not every accusation deserves your breath. It's when you turn off your phone, closing the door on venomous words, and let your heart settle, like a lake calming after a storm. In that stillness, you not only protect your dignity, a shimmering shield against invisible arrows, but also open a door for God to enter, whispering comfort and guidance only a quiet soul can hear. Recall the Israelites, their silent steps circling Jericho's walls day after day, with only the rustle of dust beneath their feet. They did not shout, did not argue with those mocking them from the ramparts. Yet, in that silence, God was weaving a miracle, preparing for the moment those walls would crumble with a single shout in His timing. Their silence was not weakness, but obedience, a trust that God's timing is perfect. And you, amid life's trials, a tense meeting, a discordant family dinner, or a lonely moment when the world seems against you, are invited into that silence, not to flee, but to stand firm, to wait, to let God fight for you. This silence is a journey, not a destination. It is forged through months when you wanted to scream but bit your lip instead. It is sharpened by sleepless nights wrestling with the pain of unspoken words. But each time you choose silence over retaliation, you not only preserve peace in your soul, but plant a seed of faith, which one day will sprout into unexpected blessings. like an oil lamp burning quietly in a corner. Your silence casts light, unassuming yet powerful enough to dispel darkness. So, when life's storms rage, when accusations try to infiltrate your mind, silence becomes your sanctuary. It is where you find strength to stand firm, where you hear God's whisper, gentle as an autumn breeze, reminding you that He sees all, knows all, and is at work. But to enter that sanctuary, you must learn to let go not of yourself, but of the need to prove, to argue, to have the final word. Dare you walk the stone-paved path of silence, where each step is a prayer, and each quiet moment a promise that God is weaving your story, more beautiful than any words could tell. When the cold wind of criticism blows through, like dry leaves swirling on a country road, there are moments when you stand at the crossroads of defense and surrender. Words, sharp as blades, can cut deep into your pride, urging you to fling open the doors of your heart to retort, to prove, to reclaim what was stolen. But in those very moments, silence emerges as a shimmering shield, not to hide you, but to protect your dignity more precious than any argument could ever purchase. Silence, amid conflicts that make your heart tremble, is an oil lamp burning quietly in a corner, bright enough to banish the darkness of hurt, warm enough to keep you whole before invisible arrows. Picture a moment in your living room, soft yellow light casting shadows on familiar walls. When a family argument erupts, perhaps it's a Sunday dinner, when a loved one's careless remark about your job, finances, or parenting ignites a spark of anger. The accusation hangs heavy in the air, like thick smoke, and all eyes turn to you, awaiting your retort. In that instant, the temptation to shout, to criticize, to defend your honor is so strong your tongue feels ablaze. But if you choose silence not out of fear, but from a deeper strength, something miraculous happens, like water dousing embers. Your silence eases the tension, prevents the fire of conflict from spreading, and keeps your dignity a precious gem unstained by hasty words. History records such a moment, not in a living room, but in a room heavy with the weight of power. Martin Luther King Jr., in the 1960s, faced countless insults and accusations from opponents of the civil rights movement. Once, at a press conference, when a reporter attacked him with offensive questions, he chose not to respond with anger. Instead, he remained silent, offered a gentle smile, and redirected the conversation to peace and justice. That silence not only preserved his dignity, but prompted reflection among witnesses, overshadowing the accusations with the light of composure. Psalm 23:5 declares, "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies." King's silence, like a sacred feast, elevated him above the attacks, letting God speak through his life what his tongue did not need to say. But conflict doesn't only arise in families or on life's grand stage. It lurks in the small corners of daily life, like a passive-aggressive work email or a cruel social media comment. In 2018, a Pew Research Center study found that 59% of U.S. social media users had felt attacked or offended online. One woman, let's call her Susan, shared her story on a community forum. She was publicly criticized on Facebook by an old acquaintance for a personal decision, with words that made her feel dragged through mud. Initially, Susan typed a long rebuttal, fingers trembling on the keyboard, ready to unleash every argument in her defense. But then she paused, took a deep breath, and deleted it. She chose silence not because she had nothing to say, but because she realized a response would only pull her into an endless spiral. The next day, a friend messaged Susan, saying her silence had inspired admiration, radiating confidence and maturity that the attack couldn't touch. Susan's silence, like a mirror, exposed the pettiness of her critic without a single word. This silence is not easy, especially when your pride is trampled. when your name is dragged through the dust of gossip. It requires a heart forged through sleepless nights, through times you swallowed tears to keep your lips sealed. But each time you choose silence, you not only protect your dignity, but halt the cycle of hurt, like a river blocked by a dam. Your silence keeps toxic words from flooding, preserving the bridges God is building in your relationships. And in that stillness, you create a sacred space where God can whisper, "I see you, I know you, and I am defending you." Yet silence is not only a shield against external conflicts, it is a gentle breeze soothing internal battles, the voices of self-doubt, old wounds reopened by careless words. When you stand before a mirror, looking at yourself after a day of life's trials, silence becomes a friend, reminding you that your worth lies not in others' words, but in the truth that you are God's child. Like Elijah on the mountain, when wind, earthquake, and fire carried not God's voice, but a gentle whisper stirred his soul. 1 Kings 19:11-13. Your silence is the door to hear him, to find yourself amid the fragments of conflict. So, when sharp words fly, when conflicts threaten to pull you into a whirlwind of anger and pain, grasp the shield of silence, not to escape, but to stand firm, to keep your dignity as a gem untainted. Remember that each moment you choose not to respond, you weave a tapestry of faith where God paints strokes of justice and healing. But how do you maintain that silence when your heart screams? When the world demands you speak, that journey, deeper than words can express, will lead you to a place only quiet souls reach, where God not only fights for you but transforms your silence into a song of victory. Deep within the chest, where invisible scars of bygone days intertwine like roots beneath parched soil, a gentle breeze arrives only when all noise subsides. Silence, like a still lake under moonlight, is not merely a shield against external storms, but a balm for internal battles, whispers of self-doubt, painful memories, wounds never soothed by words. It is a sacred door, opening to a sanctuary where your heart is embraced by God's unseen hand, where each quiet breath is a prayer, and each wordless moment a step toward wholeness. Inner wounds, like shards of glass glinting in dim light, cannot be mended with hasty words or arguments to prove worth. They need silence, as soil needs darkness for seeds to sprout. In silence, you allow your heart to stop fleeing, to stop filling voids with the world's noise. Picture a moment sitting alone on an old wooden bench, early sunlight filtering through leaves, distant birdsong, a wordless hymn. There, as your tongue rests, your soul opens. Questions that once kept you awake: am I enough? Why was I hurt? Dissolve like mist under the sun. As you let God touch corners, only He sees. Psalm 46:10 gently urges, "Be still and know that I am God." That silence is the cord tying you to Him, the path leading you back to yourself. Practicing silence is not a dry ritual, but an act of self-love, like folding an old blanket to preserve cherished memories. It begins with small things, like silencing your phone for an hour, sitting by a window with coffee, letting your mind drift with your breath. Or perhaps you step into the backyard, grass soft underfoot, letting the wind sing in place of tangled thoughts. In those moments, you need not speak, explain, or fix anything. You simply exist, like Mary at Jesus' feet, listening rather than bustling like Martha. Luke 10:38-42. This silence is an invitation to release the weight of if only and what if, to let God untie your heart's knots, gentle as a mother, soothing a crying child. But practicing silence is not just sitting still in a corner. It is a way of life, a stance for days when life feels too heavy. It's driving familiar roads, radio off, whispering a wordless prayer instead of dwelling on worries, entrusting pain to God. It's standing before a mirror after a day of inner voices insisting you're not enough, choosing silence over self-argument, letting God's truth that you are His child resound in stillness. That silence, like a cool stream, washes away the stains of self-doubt, watering your soul with peace surpassing understanding, Philippians 4:7. The journey of healing through silence is not a straight path. Some days, you'll feel lost as old wounds resurface, as inner voices scream for you to act, to speak, to ease the pain. But in those moments, silence becomes a guiding light. It teaches patience, like a farmer awaiting sprouts under cold soil. It teaches trust, like a soldier standing guard in the night, knowing dawn will come. Above all, it teaches that healing is not erasing scars, but letting God turn them into stories of grace, like strokes on a canvas only He can paint. So, enter the sanctuary of silence, not with fear, but with hope. Let each quiet moment be a stone building a temple of faith within you, where God heals, restores, and whispers promises only a still soul hears. But how do you maintain that stillness when the world keeps shouting? When old wounds creep into your dreams, that journey will lead you to a new horizon, where silence not only heals but becomes strength to stand firm through any storm, with a heart renewed by the Creator's hand. Amid the ceaseless flow of worldly noise, where calls, judgments, and pressures crash like waves against a rock, a quiet strength stands firm, needing no shouts or raised banners to be acknowledged. Silence, like an unyielding oak before a gusting wind, is the power to face the world without being swept away, to hold your soul steady amid the whirlwinds of opinion and expectation. It is not retreat, but a silent proclamation that you are strong enough to stand still, trusting enough to let God's unseen hand guide you. Even when all eyes expect you to fall, the world relentlessly demands you speak, prove, and jostle in endless races. Picture a Monday morning at a coffee shop, standing in line, when a stranger cuts in, their curt voice dismissing you as invisible. Anger flares in your chest, urging you to speak, to demand respect. But you take a deep breath, lips sealed, and let the moment pass like clouds across the sky. Your silence is not defeat, but a small victory, a declaration that your worth doesn't hinge on a fleeting argument. That day, you leave the shop with head held high, soul lighter, as if shedding an invisible burden. Or consider a late afternoon in the office, computer screen casting light on your weary face. A colleague, with a half smile, drops a barbed comment about your hard-earned project. The words are an arrow aimed at your pride, every cell screaming to retort, to prove them wrong. But instead of sharp words, you choose silence, letting your eyes speak, your calm a response. A week later, when your project is praised in a meeting, that colleague lowers their gaze not because you argued, but because your silence left an indelible mark. That silence, like a river flowing quietly, smoothed the sharp edges of conflict, reflecting the light of maturity. Silence is also strength against society's invisible voices, pressures to succeed, to stand out, to answer every question. Imagine an evening scrolling through social media, where others flaunt achievements, trips, perfect smiles. A small voice whispers, "You're not enough." Left behind, the urge to post, to prove you're thriving, makes your fingers tremble on the keyboard, but you turn off the screen, set the phone down, and sit in the quiet of a dim room. In that moment, you need no shouts to be heard, no boasts to be seen. Your silence affirms your worth lies not in likes or comments, but in the deep truth that you are loved by your Creator. Practicing silence before the world is not abandoning your voice, but choosing to use it with purpose. It's the moment you stand before a mirror, after a day of life's trials, refusing to let external voices define you. It's walking through a park, golden leaves crunching underfoot, letting stillness remind you that peace doesn't require chasing the world. Each time you choose silence, you build an inner fortress, impervious to the winds of opinion and vain expectations. That silence, like a fire burning quietly in a hearth, not only warms your soul but shines, making others pause and reflect. But this silence demands a heart forged through days when you wanted to scream but bit your lip. It is the strength of one who has learned to stand firm, not by fighting the storm, but by letting it pass. In that stillness, you find a new horizon, where God is not only your guide, but your lifter, raising you above the world's noise. How do you hold that strength when chaos tries to pull you into its vortex? That journey will lead to a place where silence is not just power, but a song of faith, echoing in corners only you and God understand. At the deep core of the soul, where silent dreams blend with wordless prayers, silence emerges as a precious gem, gleaming brighter than pure gold, more radiant than any earthly treasure. It is not merely a shield, not just a healing balm, but a song of victory, echoing through dark valleys to reach God's throne. Silence is golden not because it is rare, but because it carries divine power, lifting you above life's storms, letting you stand firm like a mountain against the wind. With a heart resounding with the promise that God always works in stillness, this silence, like an underground stream flowing through hard rock, is the treasure Jesus held before his accusers. In Pilate's cold hall, as lies rained down like hail, he did not speak, did not argue, did not plead for understanding from those who chose darkness. His silence, like light-piercing black clouds, was not defeat but a triumph, paving the way for humanity's salvation. Each moment he kept his lips sealed, heaven trembled, and God's plan was woven, more beautiful than any words could express. His silence was golden, a song of victory, proving true strength lies not in shouts but in absolute trust in the Creator's will. Consider the Israelites, their silent steps circling Jericho's walls, day after day, under the mocking gaze of enemies. They did not shout, did not challenge, did not let their tongues disrupt God's guidance. Their silence, like a golden thread tying heart to heaven, was the foundation for the moment those walls fell, when a shout in God's timing shook earth and sky. That silence was not futile waiting, but spiritual preparation, a treasure surpassing human strategies. It teaches that when you hold your tongue, you give God space to work miracles, like a spring breeze carrying seeds of victory. Then there is Elijah, standing on the mountain amid fierce wind, earthquake, and fire. Yet only in a gentle whisper did he find God's presence. His silence, like a golden veil wrapping his soul, was the door to hear him, to receive strength for dark days. That silence was not escape but a hymn, ringing in the void, that God is near even when the world seems to crumble. It reminds you that each moment you choose not to speak, you offer a sacred gift, letting God turn your trials into paths to glory. This silence is golden, not because it makes you invisible, but because it makes you invincible. Imagine sitting by a fireplace, flames crackling like the night's whisper, as external voices, judgments, expectations try to infiltrate your mind. In stillness, you find strength to not chase the world, to not let vain winds shake the flame of faith within you. Each time you choose silence, you weave a golden tapestry, where God paints stories of justice, healing, and victory only quiet souls see. But this silence demands a heart ready to let go not of itself, but of the need to control, to prove, to have the final word. It is the strength of one who has learned to stand still, like a lighthouse amid a stormy sea, letting God's light shine through their stillness. In that song of victory, you find a profound truth. Silence is not just golden, but a throne, where you sit with God, letting Him turn your trials into triumphs. How do you hold that treasure when the world keeps shouting? When storms try to pull you from silence's sanctuary, that journey will lead to a place where silence is not just victory, but a promise that God is weaving a radiant future. Even in moments you think all is lost. At the edge of passing days, where sunset gilds the earth like a silent promise, silence emerges as a golden door, opening to blessings only patient souls can touch. It is not merely a song of victory, not just a treasure surpassing gold, but a sacred rhythm, blending with God's perfect timing, like a quiet river carrying life-giving water to parched fields. Silence is the key, placed in your hand not to lock your heart, but to unlock gates of grace, where God weaves blessings beyond what words could dream. This silence, like a gentle breeze over ripe wheat, is the breath of faith, awaiting God's appointed time. Consider Moses, standing by the burning bush, when God's voice called from stillness. Before that, he endured 40 years of silence in the desert, not shouting, not demanding, only walking amid hot sand and endless sky. That silence, like a golden cloth wrapping his soul, was God's time to forge him, preparing him for the blessing of leading Israel from slavery. Each silent step on the sand was a prayer. Each day he held his tongue a stone building the path to the Red Sea. Where God revealed his power, Moses' silence was not oblivion, but a door for God to open a radiant future. Then there is David, the young shepherd, standing in green pastures with only the wind and his lyre's notes, before facing Goliath, before becoming king. David lived years of silence, not boasting, not striving for recognition. That silence, like moonlight on a dark night, was the space for God to anoint him, preparing him for the blessing of Israel's throne. When he faced the giant, it was not defiant words but silent trust in his heart that guided the stone from his sling, securing a victory a nation celebrated. David's silence was golden, a rhythm of waiting, letting God set the time for blessings beyond imagination. Like Isaiah, the prophet amid a rebellious nation, who learned to stay silent before mockery and opposition. He did not shout to defend God's words but held his tongue, aligning his soul with divine will. That silence, like an oil lamp burning quietly in a temple, opened the blessing of prophecies echoing through generations, touching lost hearts. Isaiah's silence was not submission, but an offering, letting God use him as a pen to write promises of the Messiah. This silence is a blessing, not because it makes you invisible, but because it makes you a witness to God's timing. Imagine sitting on your porch, late afternoon sun casting golden streaks on the wooden floor, as life's worries work, family, future weigh like storm clouds, in stillness. You don't shout for God's answers. Don't rush to fix everything. You sit quietly, your breath aligning with the Creator's heartbeat, his unseen whispers reminding you his timing is perfect. Each moment you choose silence, you plant a seed of faith, and like a field after rain, you'll see blessings sprout, a door opening, a relationship restored, a new path appearing. But waiting for God's timing in silence is not an easy road. It demands a heart ready to stand still, like a tree by a stream, through gusts or scorching sun. It is the strength of one who trusts, even when answers seem distant, even when the world screams for action. In that silence, you find a profound blessing, the peace of knowing God is weaving a tapestry of grace, with threads only He sees. And when the time comes, when that golden door opens, you'll step into blessings no words can describe, like dawn breaking after a long night. So, embrace silence, not with fear, but with hope. Like a farmer embracing seeds before planting, let each quiet moment be a jewel, gleaming in God's hand, as He turns your waiting into songs of triumph. But how do you hold that silence when the world urges action? When final trials try to pull you from the sacred rhythm, that journey will lead to a place where silence is not just a blessing, but a testimony that God has completed what He began in you. On the road of life, where gusting winds carry the clamor of the world and invisible scars etch deep into the soul, silence emerges as a guiding lamp, illuminating the journey of faith through dark valleys and peaks of hope. It is not merely a shield guarding dignity, a balm healing the inner self, a strength to face the world, or a sacred song of victory, but a way of life, a sacred rhythm, like a heartbeat blending with the breath of God. Silence is the golden thread connecting you to the Creator, a stone-paved path leading you through storms into the radiant dawn of grace. This journey has taught you that silence is strength, like an unyielding oak before a gusting wind, keeping you steadfast when sharp words try to cut into your pride. It is a sanctuary, where your heart is soothed, like a cool stream washing away wounds of self-doubt. Silence is a fortress, protecting you from the world's vain expectations, and a precious gem, gleaming in God's hand, unlocking blessings only patient souls can see. But above all, silence is a commitment, a way you live each day to tell the world you belong not to its noise but to God's rhythm, where every quiet moment is a prayer, every wordless step a hymn. Consider Noah, building his ark on dry plains, under the mocking gaze of his community. He did not respond to scorn, did not argue with those laughing at his dream. His silence, like the light of an oil lamp burning in the night, was absolute trust in God's promise. Each hammer strike, each day he held his tongue, was a stone building the ark of salvation, carrying his family through the flood. Noah's silence was not submission, but a life of faith, letting God turn days of waiting into eternal blessings. Then there is Joseph, cast into a dark prison, where his dreams seemed to fade in the shadows. Betrayed by brothers, falsely accused by others, Joseph chose silence, neither cursing his fate nor crying out for justice. That silence, like a golden thread gleaming in the dark, was the space for God to weave a grand story, lifting him from prison to Egypt's throne. Each day, Joseph kept his lips sealed. He lived in faith, trusting God's timing would come, and when it did, blessings flowed like a river bursting its banks. Living with silence is choosing to walk a stone-paved path, where each quiet moment is a jewel offered to God. Begin with small things as morning light slips through the curtains. Sit still with a cup of tea, letting your soul settle like a calm lake, unhurried by the day's worries. Standing before an old wooden gate, hearing leaves rustle underfoot, let silence remind you that God is whispering, guiding you through life's turns. When external voices from colleagues, friends, or your own heart try to pull you into spirals of conflict, let silence be your lighthouse, illuminating the path to stand firm in grace. This way of life is not easy, like a farmer sowing seeds in hard soil, knowing he must wait through dry seasons for fruit. But each time you choose silence, you weave a tapestry of faith, where God paints strokes of justice, healing, and blessing. Silence is not the end but the beginning of a life closer to God, where you need not shout to be heard, nor fight to be seen. It is the promise that, in stillness, you will find yourself, and more, you will find Him, the one who saw you from the start, leading you to a radiant horizon where every trial becomes a song of praise. So, walk in silence, like a traveler embracing a lamp's light, knowing each step is a proclamation of faith. Live with stillness, not to escape the world, but to touch heaven, letting God turn your wordless moments into eternal songs of triumph.